Do you think that guys are getting too soft?
Athletes? Is that what you're trying to get
like
at?
basketball players and stuff. Like, I know a lot of older coaches, especially, will make that comment and say like, "Oh, guys are just way too soft now. They can't handle like anything.
Buddy, you're softer than a Tootsie Roll fruit cup."
They're just not tough enough." Or do you think that it's a more effective way of coaching?
Back a couple of years ago when I was a little crazy and I thought I was going to be writing a blog and doing all kinds of things, one of the articles I was going to write was titled something to the effect of, "I can't yell at your kids anymore." And not, from this point of view, just go with me for a second here. The parenting has changed.
Right.
So I go down into the locker room, because we go downstairs, like we're at like the old Chicago Stadium, and after a game, a parent will come up to me, and there was always the same couple of parents, and you can almost guess who's. Would say, "Wow, you must have really peeled the paint off the locker room at halftime. Like those guys just came out and just gave her." Well, can you remember how many times? Can you count how many times I went in there and just peeled the paint off the locker room?
Well, you specifically, none. Especially like at halftime, in a practice, sure, but that's probably just because you were having a bad day. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It wasn't the effective way to get through to us.
And that is because your parents have changed the way parents parent.
Right.
Right? The way caregivers give care has changed. So if you've never had your parent, your guardian, sit down and blast you, like if you run the family car into a tree in the front yard and they just look at you and go, "It's not that I'm mad, I'm just disappointed." Well, I know what it would have been like at home for me, and it would have been a little bit more than that.
Right.
But if you're not used to that, the first time you're getting that paint peeling is here, you don't know how to respond to that.
Especially like coming from my position, it's like, you're not my father.
You're not my dad!
Right? You definitely can't speak to me that way. So it's like, obviously there's a respect thing because you are my coach and you are in a position of power. But it's like, at what level are we willing to come to a consensus and say, "Hey, let's talk as human beings," because you have the knowledge and you see from the third point perspective the mistakes that we're doing, but it's like, I also know who I am as a human being. So the delivery of us working as a group to improve, as opposed to being berated and just having to deal with that, yeah, I definitely think it's much healthier.
It's different.
It's different.
It's different for sure, and most people would say healthier.
Yeah.
I agree. And so, going back to your question, let me ask you then. So do you think players are softer now, given that conversation?
No, I don't think they're like soft. Or I would agree, things have just kind of changed.
Things have evolved.
Right.
Yeah.
They've changed. So, I mean, the amount of beyond respect, the amount of adoration or the amount of permission that we give authority figures now. There's a comic about teaching where it's like 1950. The parents are coming over the dinner table and go, "Why do you have those marks?"
Right.
2020, they're coming over the teacher's desk going, "Why does my kid have those marks?" When I came home, if something went wrong at school, my parents took the teacher's side every single time. I've seen that evolution in education now, where the parents they're taking their student's side, their kid's side on that 8 out of 10 times. So in that evolution and the way we've changed authority figures, same thing. We used to drop kids off at the rink or at the gym, and coach was surrogate parent. And what coach said goes. If I said everybody has to have the same haircut, parents would go, "Okay, I guess they're getting a haircut." End of story. Because coach said.
Right.
Well, that generation's gone. That time frame is gone. So are players softer? No, but they're sure different. And the differences aren't necessarily bad. They're not a negative. But the quick shorthand that a lot of old coaches, and I can put myself in that category, thankfully, is, they're softer, they're different, they don't handle stuff, like they don't take a dressing down in front of their teammates the way they used to. Well, did anyone like really getting dressed down in front of their No, like the difference is now you guys feel like the athletes of this generation feel that they have the agency, the ability to come up to coach after practice and go, I don't appreciate that.
Right.
You know, please talk to me like a human being.
Yeah.
So that changes things. Now, the other side of that is injury-wise.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are coaches, and you know, all of us of that generation. Like, we knew the doctor in town that we could just go to get the painkillers to get through playoffs. None of us walk right anymore either, by the way. So, yeah, you can say athletes are softer now because, you know, oh, geez, LeBron James took 2 months off for a sprained ankle. What the hell? I would have been back out there the next week. Well, first of all, none of us are that athlete to know how much force is going through that ankle, so let's not have that specific conversation. Have we advanced in athlete care and medical care? Absolutely. You and I have specifically had that conversation about, you know what, you want to chase your kids around the backyard. Maybe we back off here. Whereas before, my coach would have said to me,
I couldn't give less of a crap what you want to do with your kids, man. Like, get on the floor and get out of my face.
It's you or next man up. Make a decision, Dave.
Right.
So, again, am I making you softer because I'm trying to look at you as a person and look at your whole life and go, collegiate sport, post-secondary sport is here, and hopefully your timeline is here.
Right.
We can have a lot of impact here. We can change the timeline
100%.
here, right? To go a little Marvel universe here. Like, we can go all over the place. But ultimately, we know that there's an intention to have a timeline. Like, it's not the end-all, be-all here. So, softer is an interesting word for sure. Definitely different. I don't know if the difference is all bad, but certainly as someone coming from, like, I had that conversation when I was coaching provincial team one year. Compared to the head coach, I'm a very old school guy. He was a very new school guy, and trying to explain that to a parent without insulting the parenting.
Right.
And trying to say, well, you know, when was the last time you yelled at your son? Well, we don't do that. Right. So how can I yell at him? There's the difference between old school and new school right there. I have to change my communication methods to get my point across. I think there's been change and there's been evolution. I'm stumbling on the word evolution because I think it's appropriate, but at the same time, I don't want anyone to think that because things have evolved, that means that's lesser. It just means it's different. And I think there's been change. And I think for the most part, probably better change. But yeah, it is hard to take. You know, as a fan, sometimes you look at the amount of time athletes are taking off, and I appreciate their multi-million-dollar investments. Is it hard as a coach to say, well, you're right, it's in your best interest, you should take 2 weeks off? And darn straight it is.
Especially when it's May or March, whenever your playoffs are, right?
Yeah, right? That is the biggest challenge, and that is hard. And, you know, we've got all the little tricks about, well, you know, it's up to you, but we could really use you.
Right.
Leave you sitting there going, oh, what do I do? And
Exactly.
We've got all those tricks in the bag for sure. But yeah, I think there's a difference. There's a difference. I don't know. Softer is a good shorthand for it, but I think it takes in a lot more.
Yeah. One other thing that I think has changed, or it seems like it's changed, is the focus on athlete mental health. So the ACAC runs Make Some Noise for Mental Health. Do you know when that started?
I'm going to say we're on year 4.
Oh, so it is very, very new.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what's that kind of shift in focus been like for you? Has it changed how you coach? Are you paying more attention to that kind of stuff?
Before you answer, just to add on, I was going to say, and in those 4 years, have you seen, because of the increase on athlete mental health, have you seen performance go up, go down, anything like that? Just trends in general. Not specific athletes, obviously, because you see however many kids.
I feel like that's a little bit of a Schrodinger's cat. I think it would be really, like, you would almost have to go, okay, so that same cohort of athletes in a different environment, how would they perform? I think that's a hard predictive statement. I will say this, I think it is it's changed my coaching in the sense that I'm trying to be more aware of what the effects might be.
Mm-hmm.
It's changed my coaching in encouraging me to listen more. And I don't necessarily mean listen physically, but just trying to pick up on signs and, hey, you know what? Maybe taking a Monday off wouldn't be a bad thing here.
Right.
Never entered my mind 6 years ago. I would have thought about it physiologically, but I wouldn't have thought about
what is this going to do for morale if I
Yeah.
give them a day off before playoffs as opposed to not giving them a day off and having them at a 6 a.m. run?
Exactly. The mentality of we're getting off the bus from, a 2.5 hour bus ride and get in the gym and run because we didn't play well.
Mm-hmm.
I would have had that's just dumb because physiologically someone's going to blow a hamstring. But I wouldn't have thought about it necessarily from the mental health side of what am I doing? What thoughts are they going to go to bed with if I put them through that?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say that awareness has changed. I don't think that I've necessarily revamped everything I do in coaching, but I think the awareness piece has been big for me,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to listen and just trying to present resources because, again, coming from a generation where you didn't ask for help, you just solved your problems, and that we know that doesn't go well.
No.
We have a lot of step programs with anonymous in their title because we all tried to solve our problems without getting help, and eventually we needed big time help.
Yeah.
So we know it doesn't work. We know it's not effective. So as a coach coming in and saying, hey, here's some pamphlets, or hey, does anyone need the number? Or someone sitting in my office saying, Coach, I'm really stressed about exams. Being open to that conversation happening is part of that evolution and that awareness of what that Make Some Noise for Mental Health has done for me, and then being able to say, well, here's some resources.
Right.
Because I paid attention enough to go get the resources. So I think on that side, it's changed what I do, but maybe not necessarily in the structure of coaching.
What was it like at first, maybe that first time that an athlete came to you with serious problems, Coach, I'm really not feeling good? How did you react?
Facetiously, sarcastically, it was a little bit of, oh, here we go again.
Right.
So I taught in a Catholic high school, and I'm going to say more than once, but less than half a dozen times, I'd have a female phys ed student sit down on the bench with me while I'm doing attendance or whatever. And, hey, student, how's your day going? Can I talk to you about something deep? Sure. I'm pregnant. Do your parents know? No, I'm testing this out on you first before I go home. Okay. So here's the things I tell you because I want to keep my job in a Catholic school.
Right. Right.
Now, really, what are you going to do and what's going on? And so getting some of those as a fairly young teacher kind of prepared me to keep my poker face a little bit. I had a player who was struggling, who should have found one of those programs I was talking about earlier, and I wasn't forceful enough, and I wasn't strong enough to basically take him by the hand and walk him to the meeting myself. And I feel like I lost him a little bit, and I think he lost some time in his life, and so I regretted that a lot, dealt with that in my own ways a lot. So the next time somebody sat in my office and said I got problems, I was like, it's not going to happen again, Dan.
You were ready for it.
I still wasn't ready for it.
Well,
but
yeah,
I was,
however ready you can
Yeah.
be for a situation like that.
yeah. So I did my best to be better. And then that's just been a process of just trying to be better every time. And hopefully keeping a relationship outside that room that people still feel like they can come and find me and ask
Right.
or text me and just go, hey, I need some help.
Right.
Because that you move a few hours away from home, I'm probably it.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. Especially, it was probably easier for us because Calgary really is 3 hours away, but for the athletes that are coming from Prince George in BC, you know what I'm saying? And they're 18 years old, moving to Camrose, Alberta. They don't know anybody, right? The atmosphere that you have created, my first tryout here at the practice, it's like practice with the guys, and I'm changing. getting ready to go get changed, and I'm on the bench in the gym, and Drabs walks in, and I can't remember if it was Spencer or if it was Austin. They walk in, and they're like, "What are you doing? Go downstairs and get changed," like in the locker room with the guys. And I'm sitting here thinking, well, that's crazy. Like, I assumed that I was just going to be the small fish and they're going to bully me. You know what I'm saying? And like, obviously they're testing you. They're testing your mettle mentally and athletically. But it was more, is he going to come into our locker room and is he going to jive with my guys? When I'm not around, is he going to say something suspicious that the guys are going to hear and they're going to bring to me? And it's like, we don't want this around our program. And it's like, obviously you're not snitching on people, but you don't want somebody who sits there and sits down and says, not going to lie, I'll go to one class, whatever I have to do to stay eligible, but that's it. You know what I'm saying? Because that's not the culture that we've built here. Athletics is very important to Augustana, but getting the paper was the major decision factor in mine and at least two of my very good friends who came here. Because it's like the ACAC, we had the opportunity to play all over the province, probably at multiple schools, but where can I get a U of A degree? Where can I meet a community where it's like everybody in the building just vies for every other Viking in the building? It's an experience you can't get anywhere else. So I know that probably hit you hard, that athlete not having the control, or not, that's not the right word, the influence to get him to that meeting. But I promise you, Drabs, you did more than enough and more than you could know, because what you've done for us as individuals, you, like you were saying, in those 3 years of collegiate basketball, you're changing who we are as basketball players, but definitely as men too. And there's nothing I can say other than thank you for that opportunity.
I appreciate it a lot. And thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah.
It's not an easy choice.
Right.
So I do appreciate that, and thank you for some very kind words.
I think that's a pretty good place to wrap it up.
Yeah.
You have anything else you want to say for the camera?
You know, I love that you guys are doing this. And this, so everything we've talked about the difference in athletes as human beings and where you're going on your life journey, here's an example of something that is different.
Right.
It's not, podcasts aren't new anymore, but it's newish. But watching you guys take this and run with it is just another thing of, you know, there's another facet on your diamond about, well, okay, so you're a family member, you're a team member, you're an athlete, you're a student, now you're doing podcasting, now you're going to work and you're going to have a career. It's just one more thing that's thrown on there, and it's just fun to watch. Fun to watch this happen, and good on you guys for stepping out and doing it.
Well, honestly, I appreciate the people who come and talk to us the most. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't want to speak for Kale, but for me, it's really just an opportunity for me to educate myself. Every person that I've spoke to, like the last guy that I interviewed, he was a friend of mine since the 7th grade, and he's a soccer player. And regardless of what he said, go watch that interview. Regardless of what he said, the lessons that he encountered on the soccer field are connected to the stuff that you've been saying, and you've been in this community coaching for years. So the fact that people are willing, regardless of the age, to come and have this conversation with us, like, I really appreciate it. So thank you for taking the time.
My pleasure.
Thanks so much. It was really fun. Do it again, maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that is that. All right.
That is that.